In 2016, New Zealand proposed building a new highway north of Auckland. The project was not particularly unusual. It was not especially large, and the engineering was relatively straightforward. But the approval process alone took years. The same pattern appears again and again. A wind farm, a housing development, a transmission line, a port expansion. The construction itself may take 3 or 4 years, but getting permission to build can take a decade. So the question is simple. Why does it take so long to build things in New Zealand? New Zealand is a small country, just 5 million people. In theory, that should make big projects easier. Smaller population, fewer stakeholders, shorter distances, less bureaucracy. But in practice, the opposite often happens. New Zealand regularly struggles to deliver major infrastructure quickly. Projects stall, costs grow, and sometimes they never happen at all. To understand why, you have to look at the system that decides whether projects can proceed. Before construction begins on a large project in New Zealand, something has to happen first. Consent. Resource consent, environmental approval, planning approval, infrastructure agreements, public consultation, legal review, and often appeals. Each stage exists for a reason. Environmental protection, community input, property rights, safety, all legitimate goals. But when each layer is added on top of the others, the system becomes slow. Most large projects in New Zealand pass through a law called the Resource Management Act, often called the RMA. It was introduced in 1991, and the goal was simple: protect the environment while allowing development. Instead of dozens of overlapping laws, the RMA would create a single framework for managing land, water, and infrastructure. At the time, it was considered a major reform, and in some ways it was. But over the next 3 decades, the system grew more complicated. Today, a large infrastructure project might require approvals from local councils, regional councils, environmental agencies, infrastructure authorities, and sometimes central government. Each authority has its own process, its own hearings, its own documentation requirements, and its own potential appeals. The result is a system where even relatively straightforward projects can take years just to clear the regulatory process. Another part of the process is consultation. In principle, this is simple. Before a project proceeds, the public gets a chance to respond. Communities can raise concerns, environmental groups can object. Landowners can change aspects of the proposal. Again, the principle is reasonable. But the process can stretch out over years. Hearings, reviews, legal challenges, appeals. Each step adds time and uncertainty. Delays do not just slow projects, they change the economics of building them. While approvals take years, capital sits idle. Investors face uncertainty, costs increase, inflation compounds. And sometimes the project stops making financial sense at all. In small economies where investment is already limited, long approval processes can discourage development entirely. Other countries face similar challenges, but some manage them differently. In countries like Singapore or Denmark, infrastructure approvals tend to be faster. Not because environmental protections do not exist, but because the decision process is clearer. Shorter timelines, fewer overlapping authorities, and fewer opportunities for projects to stall indefinitely. The difference can be dramatic. Projects that take a decade to approve in some countries might take 2 or 3 years elsewhere. So why does the process become more complicated over time? Part of the answer is incentives. When problems appear, governments often add new rules. A new environmental concern, a new consultation requirement, a new review process. Each rule is designed to solve a specific problem, but over decades the system accumulates layers. Each layer adds time. Each layer adds complexity, and removing them becomes politically difficult. None of this means environmental protections are unnecessary, or that consultation should disappear. These systems exist for good reasons, but every system involves trade-offs. More checks, more safeguards, more consultation often means slower decisions. The challenge is finding the balance, protecting the environment while still allowing a country to build the infrastructure it needs. Infrastructure is not just about roads and bridges. It affects almost everything else: housing supply, energy production, transport efficiency, business investment. When projects take too long to approve, the effects ripple through the economy. Costs rise, opportunities shrink, and growth slows. New Zealand does not lack ideas, or engineers, or construction capability. What it often lacks is speed, the ability to move from proposal to approval to construction. Because in the end, building things is not just about engineering, it is about institutions and how quickly those institutions allow decisions to happen.